I spent most of this morning in the plastic surgery department of the hospital, and it was such precious moments with my 5-year-old little boy, and we don't usually get much one-on-one time with having 4 little ones, but he was there to have his thumb looked at, which turned out to be congenital trigger thumb. And we danced all the way to and from this department with our favourite soundtrack, The Greatest Showman, in the car, to the point where he has to wind the windows down and press the windows down so that the people passing by could dance along with us. And one mom did at traffic lights. So we get to the hospital and we pay for parking. Luckily it's one of the apps that I already have, because that's always a bit of faff. And then in the waiting room we get out our colouring pens and colouring book and eating some of my blueberry pancakes that I made yesterday. And actually my 5-year-old loved them too, even though they had the walnuts in. So we got to share those together. It had maple syrup on. And we got called into the room to see the doctor before we even had a chance to finish off colouring this hedgehog picture. And straight away, walking into that room, the doctor he knew exactly what he was doing. He was so clear and precise in how he delivered the information about what had to happen with the thumb. And it's a surgery which will take 15 minutes. I got a diagram, just kind of scribbled down on a piece of paper, and he told me exactly the procedure that would be carried out, how long the recovery time was, his experience with it, the fact that he does this all the time with children. And I was left with no doubt that my 5-year-old was in safe hands, and I had so much confidence in this doctor. My son was sitting there next to me the whole time, listening in, and at this point I wasn't sure how he was taking it, but I knew he was listening carefully. So I went away armed with all this information, and as you do, I got completely lost on the way back to the car, just because the hospital was a maze and we'd had to go in and out of different parts of the building to get there, and then to get back I couldn't remember my left from my right. We bumped into the doctor we'd been dealing with for this thumb just less than a year ago, because this is an ongoing thing, and we'd tried non-surgical methods to sort the thumb out, and it seemed to be working a little bit, but from what I'd heard from the plastic surgeon doctor, it was going to have to be sorted with an operation. There was no other alternative left to try. And it was so good seeing this doctor from before. He was saying that there may have been signs to this trigger thumb when he was 2 years old. And it made me think back to what life was like when he was 2. And at that point I had 4 children under the age of 5. So I could have easily missed the signs of anything, especially a triggering thumb. But I don't miss signs anymore. Or at least not many, as I try to see more of what's going on. And the doctor, the one that we'd seen a year ago, that had carefully made this splint for my son twice, because I lost one and we had to have another one redone, and his hand grew a bit. He said that we'd be able to see him again after the surgery, and he would do some aftercare with my son. So it was really great to catch up with him, and then he pointed me in the right direction, said I could get back to my car, and we went home with the music on. Now on that journey back to the car where we were getting lost, I could see that there were loads of thoughts going through my 5-year-old's head about this surgery, and it definitely wasn't any kind of anxiety or uncertainty that had come through me or through the doctor. Both of us, I knew, were completely happy with the procedure and how it was going to go ahead. So I said to my 5-year-old, do you have any questions about what you've heard and about the surgery? And straight away he opened up, and he wanted to know whether it would hurt and what the cut would be like and how long he'd be asleep for. And there was all these questions, and I answered them as best as I could. And the reason I was able to answer the questions this well wasn't because I already had the knowledge, but mostly because I had asked the right questions to the doctor, the plastic surgeon, when we were in that meeting room. And we were only there for 15 to 20 minutes, but I made sure that I came out knowing as much as possible, because I wanted to be prepared to answer questions to my 5-year-old. Now, there were a couple of questions that he asked that I didn't have the answers for because of my own lack of experience and knowledge. So one of them was about how long he'd be asleep for. And so I said to him, well, actually, Daddy, I'm sure, has been through this before, so he would be a great person to ask this question to. So when we get home, you can ask him this question, he'll be able to give you an answer. So I was trying to, I suppose, outsource to someone that could give the right answer rather than coming out with something that I was just guessing at. And he seemed to be able to, seemed to be happy with this and wait for it. And actually, when we got home, and instead of sending him straight into school, I left some more time for him to talk, because in the car he was 2 rows back in our big vehicle, and we had our Greatest Showman soundtrack to dance along to and to sing along to. So it wasn't the time and the place to have these big feelings and conversations. So I knew that when we got to the school, we'd have 45 minutes before lunch break. And that's when I could make sure we'd exhausted as many of his anxieties and his questions about this operation. And it wasn't to draw anything out of him and make it a bigger deal than what it was, because actually he has all those questions in his head, and they'd still be there whether I asked him to put them out into the world or not. So for me, I think it was best, and for him, to try and clear the air as much as possible. And one of these questions that came up was, am I going to die? And it just kind of stopped me, because I'm not sure in what context he was thinking of. Maybe it was because of the medicine that sent him to sleep, the anaesthetic. Maybe it was because he knew he was getting cut with something sharp, and then he thought towards blood and death. And I don't know either way, but he, at 5 years old, had access to this information somehow, that the situation that he was in could involve death. And I did answer this question, and I reassured him as much as possible. In fact, in my mind, and what I see to be true, is that there is more chance of him dying if he wasn't on anaesthetic, because he'd be out in the world doing something more risky. But I didn't completely clear his reservations about this particular thing, because I could just tell by the way that he received it and the way that he thought about it afterwards. But he'll carry on processing all these questions and answers whilst he's at school today. So back to where we came home, and he was able to ask his question to his daddy about what it was like to take anaesthetic. And I knew that I could trust him to ask this question to someone else that knew what they were talking about. And the story was funny, it was real, it involved all the facts it needed to, and it put him at ease. It didn't completely clear his worries about it. That's something that he'll have to process, for however long he needs. But that it added a lightness and I could see that it had made it better for him. So then we were ready to walk around to school and drop him back in, where he would start his school day at lunchtime with his friends and go on to have his infant junior his infant summer party after school, and I'll look forward to seeing him after that. So we had a magical morning in a way, a time that I wouldn't usually get to spend one-on-one with my 5-year-old, but I'm so pleased that I was with him this morning and we did that instead of maths and phonics and the friendships, because I've lived this morning. It really is a feel-good Friday. I hope you have a great one too.